Manipulism and the Weapon of Guilt, Collectivism Exposed. Written by Mikkel Clair Nissen. Narrated by David Bucci. Chapter 10. Big Mother's Indoctrination Program. Starting from birth, the menu of free-of-charge luxury goodies, entitlement benefits most people in the world have never dreamt of or ever heard about, are almost unlimited in Denmark. It is therefore easier to mention the only two that are not free of personal charge yet: dental care, though free of personal charge until the age of 18, and day care, which based on family income starts at just under $400, though it is free of personal charge while collecting Social Security or student funding. Yes, you heard correctly. In Denmark, one is paid to study, and education is free of personal charge all the way up to and including university. Education free of personal charge is counted as one of the government's most vital entitlement programs. Education at all levels acts as a government indoctrination program, there to purchase votes, in order to perpetuate democratic socialism. Students generally view student funding as a salary for studying. Hence, when students are confronted with the fact that viewing student funding as a wage should then equally allow the same requirements as a normal job by cutting the so-called wage to penalize for absence from classes, the entitlement and infinite excuses are again at display. Since the educational system in Denmark became free of personal charge in the late middle 20th century, the social bullies have become highly influential in academics with the habituation of this now common narcissistic mentality in the general population. The last right-wing conservatives and classical liberals, libertarians, have steadily become subdued, radicalized, and assimilated over the last 40 years into Marxism's collective human organism. Machiavellian egocentricity. The true dawn of collectivism in the United States and a great example of collectivism's bad boundaries, manipulative techniques, and envy became truly evident in April 2000 when the Danish drummer Lars Ulrich from the famous heavy metal band Metallica took legal action against the website Napster.com after Metallica's entire catalog was found to be freely available for download on Napster's online service. Metallica consequently filed a lawsuit against the company for copyright infringement and racketeering. The case was settled out of court, resulting in more than 300,000 Napster users being banned from the website. Lars Ulrich was the focal point of the backlash that became the perfect example of the force of collectivist manipulation techniques. This coercion is difficult to recognize if one is not aware of exactly what to look for. If one searches the internet on sites such as YouTube for stories about the case, one will find numerous disdainful videos mocking Metallica, all with the same irrational argument of scornful envy. You have so much and are greedy, so it justifies us stealing from you. This is ambient abuse, Machiavellian egocentricity, with one intent only: to attain dominance by utilizing the weapon of guilt. So which is worse, I ask? Expecting to get things for free, stealing, and claiming the right to someone else's possessions, or wanting to keep one's hard-earned assets and other personal possessions? Greedy or not, the argument is powerful reverse psychology, manipulative techniques largely used by narcissists, coercion so powerful that it not only eventually had Lars Ulrich apologizing, but literally had him apologizing for opposing practices that stole what was rightfully his. The urge to control others and the need for full compliance, never to be contradicted, confronted, or disapproved of, leads narcissists to seek out superior mind-controlling positions. Not many places of employment provide a more soothing environment for the maladaptive collectivist narcissists' inferiority complexes than the institutions of education, where the collectivist mind has control of the subservient child or adolescent. Known in Denmark as pedagogues, child caregivers and teachers are with almost no exception fascists, socialists, and communists. Pedagogy, which means to lead the child, is a perfect construct of teaching ideals used by Marxists, built on theories, amongst others, such as liberating children from their parents at an early age. These theories of social education and social inclusion entirely disguise Marxism's intended agenda, which is to convert the child's individual identity into a collective ego. This necessary programming of bad boundaries is easily achieved, considering the deprived collectivist parent's abdication of responsibility. The child is released into the total control and care of society and government through these pedagogic caregivers and teachers' complete upbringing of the child. The truly awful part in this mind game, and the part that no Marxist wants you to know, is that the daycare and public school system, the governmental indoctrination program, is where the personality mind control of manipulism is progressively implemented. It is a slow subliminal process of correctional lectures, forming adaptation to the Marxist's maladaptive behavior, gradually increasing with age. The pedagogue initially endeavors to persuade the child of the unimportance of expressing self-assurance or self-encouragement. Rather, to fit in, to follow suit, is of the utmost importance. The coercion then intensifies dramatically during the years of adolescence. Perfectly assessed by society's malign narcissistic tyranny, a denial of the emerging individual self, the assuring result is severe inferiority complex, therefore, necessitating codependency, and the successful radicalization of even the most liberated child. In countries like these, the governmental big brother, bad boundaries, is everywhere, like a fly on the wall. Authority's power comes from laws intruding into an area more private than the four walls of one's own home, in fact with laws that reach into one's mind. Not that I particularly believe in alcohol consumption around children, but it is out of the question to simply socialize over a beer after work with your coworkers if the next step in your daily routine is to pick up your children from daycare. Any hint of your having consumed alcohol gives these child caregivers authority not to hand over your children. Pedagogue child caregivers and teachers, any entitled government official in general, will go through walls to attempt to set up the system against anyone who would challenge their abilities, including denying, manipulating, and intimidating any perpetrator opposing their authority. These child caregivers, hired as governmental watchdogs, keep a constant eye on parents' movements. They watch for something as simple as not having a stable routine or wanting to keep the child at home for the day instead of in daycare. No privacy exists in this big brother society, and desire for privacy can even be perceived as a sign of trouble in the family. Childhood in democratic socialism is completely effortless, the spoiled life, like that of a child born into extreme wealth. Children spoiled by the deprived collectivist parents' utter lack of challenges will display dependency on the system and a lack of endeavor. The first few years of adolescence are a critical period, when self-reliance or dependency will be determined. Depending upon the severity of their pathological narcissism, young adults may still likely remain open to enlightenment, although the youths are generally already driven by severe inferiority complexes. Marxist parties, preying on ignorance with guilt and bribery, purchase a great percentage of votes from first-time voters, exploitative parasites that neither care about nor are experienced in politics, and young people who are receiving an education. In fact, the government's preferred voter is one who says, "I do not care for politics," yet still chooses to vote. Quite frankly, that taxes would be better used on what Marxists always frame as the hallmark of their motivation, to care for the weakest. My childhood friend who was abused sexually for years by his stepfather was offered no help by the government, as often disadvantaged people are neglected for Marxism's greed. Luxury benefits, established to bring about social equilibration, in no way benefit the weakest. The quarterly child benefits check that all parents, both rich and poor, in Denmark receive, even the Queen, is as high as $1,500. A Marxist is not very different from a rich man's spoiled child. Give Marxists a hand, and the ever-increasing public entitlement will assure they eventually demand your whole arm. Enough is never enough. With the escalating entitlement, learned helplessness assures the monetary lower classes' ever-increasing demand for more entitlement benefits. It never stops. Thus, Marxists will do anything to persuade otherwise. It all starts with food coupons that eventually become actual cash in hand. Social Security benefits will eventually be as high as in Denmark. where security benefits can be as high as an ordinary factory worker's income of $3,000 after taxes. Next comes universal health care, and so progressively, Marxists move on to education. In Denmark, everyone receives education free of personal charge. In addition, students receive funding of more than $1,500 monthly if they are raising a child, with an additional benefit of 2 to 3 months on average of annual government-funded holiday. Furthermore, students have the option of taking out governmental-provided monthly loans of around $800, and students still living at home with their parents can receive more than $400 monthly. This provides the perfect means for bribing adolescents at an early age to favor Mother Denmark, the government's far-left wing. This money literally goes to personal indulgence. When young students are asked why society should support them rather than requiring them to get a part-time job while being supported, living in their parents' home, my research showed that these students immediately would cite their need for personal luxuries such as mobile phone use, party lifestyles, and smoking habits. What else is provided free of personal charge? Trees for the garden, personal computers, and work sabbaticals. And as mentioned earlier, holidays, breast implants, artificial impregnation, and the list goes on and on. This points toward one among many of Marxism's major problems: greed. In general, Marxists think of money as the solution to society's problems. All this is bribery to ensure equilibrium, when better solutions can be found by focusing on society's problems on an emotional level. One cannot avoid thinking, no, money does not grow on trees. Hypocritically, the most commonly employed Marxist techniques of compulsive projections are, liberals are greedy, or liberals only think about themselves. Deprived as they are, Marxists feel that people who want to keep their own money are greedy, yet humorously, the Marxists do not consider themselves greedy for feeling entitled to other people's money. Deceitfully, these projections of guilt are forced upon left-wing collectivists, center-left-wing social liberals on Denmark's imaginary right wing. Not an everyday story. In the process of writing this book, I resided in a low-income apartment complex. During my daily routine to pick up my children from school, I regularly observed a young woman in her early to mid-20s waiting at the bus stop. This young woman simply shined with a sense of kindness about her, always passing the biggest smile. Being quite out of character, in no way fitting the behavior of the average Dane, therefore, the thought had shamefully crossed my mind as to if she were sane. Summer had arrived, and one day I arrived at the bus stop early. She arrived and as always passed the kindest smile. Although it is not common to talk to strangers, I impulsively asked in Danish, "Where do you get all the joy from? You always smile so nicely." "Sorry, I don't understand Danish," the girl replied with an American English accent. I instantly cried out in English, "Oh, now I understand perfectly." In my years of observation and research, I did find one good thing about Marxism. Socialism's freely available resources of luxury benefits can be utilized against itself. In order to complete this book, for years now I have spent all the money I have ever saved as well as using the free funding and education system in order to attend lectures, seminars, and courses. The education has made it possible for me to observe and analyze behavior, and thereby to verify and finalize my theories as well as to correct flaws in my research on Marxist mentality. Most importantly, it allowed me to write and thoroughly infiltrate the educational system and research its methods of indoctrination. If one knows what to look for, Marxism's way of indoctrination, for example, prejudices, condemnation, and scornful envy, can be found everywhere and in everything in Denmark. This extends into all areas including educational material, advertisements, pamphlets, TV shows, and music, even kids' songs. For that exact reason, I undertook a whole semester, a college social science class, to observe behavior and teaching methods. Throughout the course, I kept one question in mind: how can highly educated people be kept from, or keep themselves from, realizing reality? The experience was astounding. I can say with 100% certainty that not one of the participating undergraduates in the course of a whole year's education ever moved an inch politically. Marxism's propaganda, liberalism, humanity is egotistical, was emphasized throughout the learning material and elaborated on verbally numerous times throughout the course of the year. Studies were based more on learning terminology to sound educated than on studying and analyzing social science fact. Economist Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize recipient, was mentioned, once by name, during the year-long course, but Marxism's preferred economist, John Maynard Keynes, was the name of the game. Classical liberalism, libertarianism was never mentioned. The invention of a right wing on the collectivist left wing surpasses any other attempted deception in Marxism's pathological indoctrination scheme, perfectly enabling ignorance and deception such as portraying the National Socialist Adolf Hitler as a right-winger. Thus, Marxism's tools of deception are often hidden in obvious facts entirely and intentionally avoided. The government's choice of educational material is among the best examples of the government's deception. The complete government-controlled curriculum included statistic booklets on practically all subjects, except statistics on suicide and depression. Or better stated, information could be found on anything except what is critical of socialism. Statistics in regard to homelessness, however, proved to be some of the most purposely misleading. Only one nation was ever compared to Denmark's homelessness rate, the United States, of course. Bear in mind that Marxists, driven by severe inferiority complex, dread the confident individualistic American. None of the numerous nations in Europe, such as Austria, Italy, or Switzerland, all with lower homelessness rates than Denmark's, were ever mentioned. I once observed the teacher conferring with a student, with pride and excitement, about how the university she had attended openly indoctrinated academic delegates into supporting a specific radicalized socialist party. Indoctrination succeeded in making this teacher elusive. Regardless of how much I intentionally provoked her with controversial questions, she would simply defer to another subject, attempt to set up the class against me, seem uninterested in my comments, or disregard my questions. During this class, Russia, the end result of communism, was never mentioned. With an estimated 143.4 million residents, an estimated 5 million Russian people are homeless, approximately 3.5% of the population, whereof 1 million are estimated to be children. Neither was there mention of the neo-communist nation of France, the near end result of democratic socialism. France, with an estimated 60 million residents and skyrocketing taxes, recently raised its tax levels to as high as 75%. France's homelessness rate, estimated to be around 1 million people, approximately 1.6% of the population, is at least double that of the United States. In America, with an estimated population of 310 million people, the United States homeless guesstimates range from as low as 600,000 to as high as 2.5 million, approximately 0.2 to 0.8% of the population. The statistics for the European Union was around 500 million people, estimate 3 million people to be homeless, approximately 0.6% of the population. Compare these statistics to Denmark, with an estimated population of 5.5 million people, and where homelessness is estimated to be 10,000 to 12,000, approximately 0.2% of the population. These are just a few of the many examples in Denmark of socialism is the best propaganda, the perfect pathological mind game. The government's attempt to indoctrinate using an ideal cocktail of bribery, a lifetime of societal coercion, an education free of personal charge, perfectly disables any source of skepticism, questionability, or criticism toward authorities or society's structure. A quote by Ronald Reagan: "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same." This has been Manipulism and the Weapon of Guilt, Collectivism Exposed. Written by Mikkel Clair Nissen. Narrated by David Bucci. Copyright 2015 by Mikkel Clair Nissen. Production copyright 2015 by David Bucci Voice Talent.